Well, we'll call the meeting to order for this evening, and we do have an item for a closed meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Section 2.2-3711, subsection 5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. And this is project number 2017-035. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fizikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're in
You're
closed session. Okay, do we have a motion to come out of work session?
So second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, can we go ahead and do the certification, Mr. Attorney?
Please.
All right. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors enters the closed meeting to return to regular session, whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board that such meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board. Do I have a motion for the certification?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor King, second by Supervisor Shepherd. We'll do a roll call. Supervisor Bond,
Aye.
Supervisor King,
Aye.
Supervisor Tuck,
Aye.
Supervisor DeMotts,
Aye.
Supervisor Shepherd,
Aye.
Supervisor Fizikowski.
Aye.
6 ayes. We are certified and out of closed session. So at this point, we'll break till 7:15, and then we'll start with an agenda and the pledge, which means we got to go find a flag.
Oh, there's one.
Yay. Good. We have already certified our closed meeting from earlier this evening, so at this point, we'll move into our moment of silence, and after the moment of silence, I'll lead us in the pledge. So at this point, I'd ask us to stand for a moment of silence. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Well, this is our first meeting of the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. And our first item of business this evening is the election of chair for calendar year 2018. At this point, I will open the floor to receive nominations for chair of the board. And I'll remind folks that no seconds are required for nominations. So are there any nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Chris Tuck.
Okay. I have a nomination for Supervisor Chris Tuck for chair. Are there others? Hearing no other nominations, I would ask for a motion to close nominations.
Motion to close.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you take call the roll for the motion to close nominations, please?
Mr. Fizikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. At this point, I would ask that all those in favor of Supervisor Tuck assuming the role of chair for calendar year 2018 to please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. At this point, my 9 is complete for that, so I'll turn it over to Chair Tuck. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, I think. I want to thank all of you for the support, and I will try to live up to your expectations, and hopefully we're going to have a great year with the county. Next up on our agenda is election of vice chair. Is there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate April DeMotts to be vice chair.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the nominations?
Motion to close.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Now it is, I guess we'll be voting on vice chair.
Excuse me.
Wow, you
I apologize
That's the media calling. They want to know.
already.
Sam was in the room for a minute and he,
Stepped out to call you.
yeah. Is
Sorry.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Next item on our agenda is organizational matters. Subject A, selection of a regular meeting date. And is there any motions in regards to a regular meeting date? Well, I believe it's the second and fourth Mondays of each month. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, wait, excuse me. I guess I better, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And Mr. Chair, I might add, I know that is titled Selection of Regular Meeting Date, but we also need to determine the regular meeting time. As you're aware, for the last several years, we've met at 7:15. That's actually been a tradition for a while. Seems to work well, so I would suggest that you continue with that unless the majority of the board feels otherwise.
7:15 work for everybody? Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And
Vote on that.
do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, we didn't
All
add
right.
that in.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next up, subject B. Oh, wait, no, that's subject
B. Yeah.
B, yes. Rules of order and parliamentary procedures. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject C, Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. DeMotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And next up is presentations, recognitions, and awards.
And both those items, Mr. Chair, the Tourism Development Council presentation, as you're aware, originally we were scheduled to meet last night. Ms. Bleakley is at the town of Blacksburg tonight because their meeting was tonight. And then Dave Clark had a meeting in Charlottesville this evening, so he was unable to attend. So we have no presentations, recognitions, and awards this evening.
Well, there we go.
Here we are in the yard again.
Next up is public hearings. The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on December 24th and December 31st. Specifically, the fiscal year 2018-2019 county budget. The purpose of this public hearing is to gather citizens' comments on upcoming 2018-2019 fiscal budget year. And I'm not, unless Deputy Weaver over there, or should I say Captain Weaver, wishes to come out, I don't think there's any other citizens in the room.
And for our new board members, this is actually a statutory requirement that we have a public hearing each year. And it's mainly to allow citizens, if they have any thoughts or comments, to come forward as I'm sure you're well aware, as we move into the budget process, when I present the budget to the board, my recommended budget in March, there'll be ample opportunities between that date and the adoption of the budget for the public to come forward and have comment on the proposed budget. So even though it's a public hearing this evening, there'll be plenty of other chances for folks to speak.
Next item on our agenda is public address. I am seeing no one out. No one did sign up, I don't believe.
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing no one, I guess I will open it and then close public address. I don't believe that there is an addendum. Is there a motion regarding consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And before I go any farther, I would be remiss to point out that Ms. Biggs is not here with us tonight. She is ill. She's been fighting a respiratory infection, and she also has asthma, and that has complicated matters. And I know that from my experience of being on the board with her, I think this is the first time that she's missed because she's been sick. I know she had death in family members and the like, but so I'd ask folks to keep her in your prayers and thoughts. The next item up is new business and Board of Supervisors annual appointments to boards and commissions. And I'm just going to start going down the list, and we'll start off with the AFD Advisory Board. I have served on that, if I recall correctly, and I would be happy to serve on that. Continue. They don't meet very frequently. It's if you will recall, the Smart Road issue came out through that advisory board, but it is not something that meets on a frequent basis, unless somebody else wants it. All right, I'll assume that
It's all
that's
yours.
mine. The Chamber of Commerce liaison that meets on a monthly basis. We report along with the two towns, and I have been that liaison in the past, and would continue to serve on that. If that, it typically, I want to say it meets Wednesdays at 3 at the Chamber office in Christiansburg, and I believe that Mary was my backup. And I know that she's indicated she wanted to continue, but if does anyone want to serve on that, I can continue to do that as well. But I'm not saying, boy, if you all take it away from me, I'm going to throw a Opie fit and flop on the floor.
Actually, according to the record we had, it was the chair that was the liaison and the vice chair that was the alternate. But I do believe you're right. I know that I think Ms. Biggs went to a couple of the meetings when you couldn't go.
I thought it's a chair or designee on, so.
Yeah, I'm looking
He's
at,
saying what, last year.
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking at how we had it last year, but
So now, and I'm looking to the staff, should we go ahead and make motions or one motion all?
One motion all.
yeah, I
Okay,
think
that's,
what,
all right.
what we've done is we get all the blanks filled in and then approve them.
So since Mary's not here, so we'll just put her in for that.
She wants to keep everything she's on if nobody else wants it.
Right.
Yes, that's
County School Liaison, that has been the chair as well, and that is a monthly meeting. And then usually Mary has been, or Annette.
yeah, this past year it's the county administrator, the chair, and then an alternate. And Annette was the Ms. Perkins was the alternate, but there were times she couldn't make it, and Ms. Biggs attended in her stead.
I believe Mary would like to be the alternate.
And then, all right, that sounds,
I have a question about that.
Okay.
On the list that was provided, we have a county/school liaison, and then on the second page, we have a school liaison.
Oh.
Is that a typo
That-
or?
The school liaison, the one that's just school liaison, is the designee slated to attend all school board meetings.
Okay.
Somebody's mad.
that didn't sound real good.
So they are two separate things.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, Mary did indicate to me also that she wanted to continue to be, or to be the alternate
okay.
for that.
All right, so next is the Economic Development Commission.
Keep it, or if somebody else wants it, they can have it.
It's yours.
I
Looks like
don't
I
see
got it.
anybody coming forward to snatch that away from me. Next up is the Fairview District Home Board.
And I'm sorry to slow you down on that. I'm looking at last year's list as we go. It looks like last year we had an alternate if Supervisor Shepherd couldn't attend, and actually that was you.
Yes, and I did fill in once, and then there was a meeting I couldn't fill in for.
I think I only had to miss twice.
Yeah,
Okay. You don't have to designate an alternate if you don't want to. but-
I'm happy to be that alternate, because they meet at lunch, and that can, typically, the courts take a break, so that I can usually make it. Fairview District Home Board, does anybody wish to serve on that?
I would like a better explanation of what that is.
Carol, Carol's our Fairview home expert.
The Fairview District Home, it meets quarterly. This is the actual district board, so normally you have citizen representatives or elected officials on that board. It is an assisted living facility that is managed by the Community Services Board. I'll spare you the couple of decades of issues that have gone on with it, but currently it is an assisted living facility owned by the respective jurisdictions, which includes all of the New River Valley with the exception of Floyd, and they provide largely services to mental health clients, and the management agent is the Community Services Board. The body that you see below that, the Fairview Home Incorporated, is actually the operating board that staff normally of the jurisdictions have been serving on that board, and they look at more things like licensure issues and some of those kinds of things. The Policy Oversight Board is the district board that meets quarterly. And Mrs. Perkins had been serving on that board.
I've had some clients where I do work as guardians and conservators, and you would have folks maybe who have Down syndrome but don't have family members. They would get placed there, or other mental health issues, not your traditional dementia type issues, but rather mental health issues where they're not incapable of taking care of themselves, and a lot of times they just don't have any family support. So this is kind of a home to make sure that they have a place to go.
When and where are the meetings held for that?
They're held at the Fairview Home, and they're usually during the day at 10 o'clock. I'm trying to remember. I think it's the
Fourth Tuesday.
third Thursday.
Oh, is it?
Is it second or third?
It says third.
You know where
I think it's the third.
Oh, yeah, third Thursday at 10 a.m.
20, 25 minutes to get over there.
They meet at the Fairview Home, which is in Dublin.
Did you ever go? You were the backup for that, right?
No, I never went.
Okay.
Any takers? Mr. Fidzikowski?
I'm available. I'll take it.
Thank you, sir. Legislative liaison.
It would be Mary, right?
Yeah, Mary wanted to keep that
Okay.
one.
And now, did Mary's email say, or that she was open if you were interested in serving on the library board? Is that something?
Yep.
Does Mary have is there a backup?
I've been her backup. I've only had to attend one time for her. So I'd be happy to stay your backup, Sarah.
Sounds good.
Okay. MPO organization.
This is the New River Valley MPO, which meets, it's scheduled to meet monthly on the first Thursday. In actuality, we only meet probably 3 to 5 times a year. We only meet when there's business to attend to. Ms. Perkins had been the board member. Ms. Biggs was the alternate. I've been on as county administrator, and I'm actually serving as the, I've served for the last several years as chair of the NPO, so.
When do they meet?
First Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. here in this building.
If that messes you up, you can't.
Takes
do it.
me out of the picture, yeah.
It takes me out as well. I have a Town of Blacksburg Housing and Community Development Advisory Board meeting on the first Thursday of every month at the same time.
It would mess me up from some of the other choices
Okay.
that I'm wanting to take, so can we maybe put that one on the back burner? Or?
Okay, or is there anybody else who, the county administrator attends?
Yes. I'm always there and can report back. Occasionally, well, we do need representation occasionally because there are policy items that have to be voted on, so we do need, it would be good to have a representative, yes, for sure.
Since Mary's not on the library board, could we consider that appointment? You know, I hate doing that when she's not
I
here.
don't think she asked for any more, other than the airport.
Oh, okay, so she's thinking she'll
She
go
wants
up
the airport, yeah.
Could we leave that blank and then see if she would be available or willing? Does anybody have an objection to that? And we
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. And I want to say, who was the backup? Was I the backup on that?
Mary.
Well, actually, Mary was the backup, and Miss Supervisor Perkins was the board member, and Supervisor Biggs was the alternate on the MPO.
I can try to put myself down as the alternate, but I don't want to commit because I don't know that I can be there. And
Court schedule.
Yeah. So next up is Montgomery County Improvement Council.
Me.
Okay.
As
Nobody
long as
seems.
that's okay with everybody.
All right. Parks and Recreation Commission Liaison.
I would really like to keep that if it's okay with everybody.
And I would like to be the alternate on that one.
Okay.
Be all right.
That seemed. I'm willing to continue to stay on the Planning Commission, and I know you're my alternate on that. Do you? And I've talked with Steve. He was also interested, and I don't know. All right.
Oh, that's completely fine with me. If Steve is interested, I am not married to it.
But you jumped on it so fast.
I jumped on Parks and Rec really quick. Planning Commission you can have. I love Planning Commission. It's wonderful, but certainly if you're interested in being the alternate or being the liaison for that.
Yeah, I would be interested in being the alternate for that.
Okay. All right. And then all of us on the Road Viewers Board, except I would like to be able to sit in the front seat so I don't get car sick when we go on that.
And
I got a CDL.
well, that's a very valid point. I was just going to say it's been
You're a driver.
quite a few years since we've convened the road viewers. We normally do that every couple of years to go out and view county roads and identify areas that need improvement, and we will be working to try to do that later in the year. So, and instead of me driving the van, I might ask Supervisor Shepherd to drive the van.
Road trip.
Maybe a small bus. You know?
Small bus.
Yeah. Next is the school liaison, and this is the one board member who goes to the meetings and reports back. Sarah? All right, sounds good. And
Can we have an alternate?
Like everybody has.
If you can't make it, just call somebody.
Okay.
oh. And there are now my understanding is they are changing their policy. They're not going to be videotaping their work sessions that are in here. Is that, or at least that was something they discussed, so that they're going to have one meeting that's on, and then at least that's what Dr. Meyer had said last year that they were thinking about doing. So, Transportation Safety Commission.
I would like to take that one.
That's good.
It's okay.
And Virginia Tech Liaison.
Glad to continue with that if the board.
All right, so the only one that we didn't fill was the MPO, and we're going to look to see if Mary's willing to do that. So with that in mind, is there a motion in regards to filling those slots?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject B, appointment, New River Mount Rogers Workforce Innovation and Consortium. That is, now I believe that, we have to go back and look, but wasn't it Mary on that?
Ms. Perkins.
Oh, it was Miss Perkins, okay.
Well, sorry, Supervisor
You're
Biggs
right.
is the appointee. Supervisor Perkins was the alternate, so
So
we
this
need
would
to
be the-
replace the alternate.
She wants to keep that.
Okay,
And those are meetings every third Wednesday of every other month at 9:30 in
In
Withville.
Withville. That's the challenge there.
okay. So, since these are taking individual motions on each one of these, correct? And so is there a motion to appoint Miss Biggs?
Motion.
Now, this is just for the alternate.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is actually.
oh,
this
oh,
is
just the alternate.
Yes.
Oh,
since
okay.
Since Supervisor Perkins.
That's
is-
right, I'm sorry. So for the alternate, who do we,
When do they meet?
The third Wednesday every other month at 9:30 at the Withville Meeting Center in Withville. Yeah, 9:30 in the morning. Those are hard.
Yeah.
And I will say, Mary's not here to say it, but she is extremely good about attending all of her meetings.
Yeah.
And so serving as an alternate means you will rarely have to serve in her stead.
We'll get back on that one.
I was gonna say, I mean, you can put me down as the alternate, I just, with a 9:30, typically courts start. You can put me down as long as everybody understands if I have a court obligation, I won't be able to attend. I'll be the alternate.
Okay.
So is there a motion to make me the alternate?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Chair Tuck, can I also, if I could, just briefly, I want to mention, because starting with the resolution in Subject B and carrying forward through some of the other resolutions, there is language in each of these resolutions, and this became a question over the last couple of weeks. There is language in all the appointing resolutions that the Board of Supervisors approve that says, be it further resolved that the expiration of a Board of Supervisors' term in office shall constitute a voluntary resignation from any board, commission, authority, appointment as a representative of Montgomery County. That means when a board member's term ends, that they are no longer on various boards and commissions. That doesn't mean that the board can appoint, the board can appoint whoever you want to appoint, but that's language that's been in the resolutions for a while, and I think it was a little bit confusing for a few folks.
Craig,
Sir.
I'd also add any employees that are put on boards and commissions have the same language.
thing.
If they're no longer employed, then
Thank you, Marty.
they're also, so it's similar language.
Yeah, and that was added some years ago so that, and it actually happened in an adjoining community where an employee was no longer employed by the jurisdiction, but that employee continued to represent that jurisdiction on several, or at least one, board. And so this board asked that that language be in there to help clarify that. Thank you, I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you for clarifying that. So we've taken, now we're on subject C, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And is there anyone, did I hear correctly, Sarah, that Mary was wanting to serve on? This is the New River Regional Commission?
That's not the airport.
That's not the
Oh,
airport.
I'm sorry, I skipped down.
No, this is actually what used to be known as the PDC. It's now the Regional Commission over in Fairlawn.
Is that the one that meets on Thursday night?
They meet on the
Fourth Thursday.
fourth Thursday night of each month, yes.
Is that,
I'm interested in that.
okay,
You want that one?
all
It's
right.
yours.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject D, appointment to Peppers Ferry Regional Wastewater Treatment Authority.
That would be the first Thursday of each month at 11:30 a.m. in Radford.
Supervisor King has expressed interest. Is there anybody else? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject E, appointment Roanoke Valley MPO.
That's one.
Mr. Fitchkowski.
I would like to take that on. I feel it a obligation since it's on the eastern side of Montgomery County, which falls in my district.
I was going to say, actually, Supervisor Fitchukowski's district is the only district that's in the Roanoke Valley MPO, so that makes good sense that he would be the appointee.
Guarantee we will not try to secede.
Well, there you go. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Now we're getting to subject F. I'd skipped down before. Was there discussion, Sarah, that you had with Mary in regards to this, or?
She would like to do this.
Okay.
She's also told me the same.
All right. So,
I'd
Is
like
there
to
a motion?
nominate, there's a motion to nominate Mary Biggs for this
Second.
position.
is there a second? Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Oh, I already said Mr.
I
King.
gave
I'm
vote twice.
sorry. Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
I skipped
your
you.
turn.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
Six ayes.
I wasn't sure if I was going to get to.
Aye, aye,
I gave vote twice.
All right. Next up, subject G, appointment to the Solid Waste Authority.
When's that one meet?
Second Thursday of each month at 1:30 at the Solid Waste Authority in Christiansburg.
I'm willing to take it if nobody else. That was one that Gary had, so.
Is that okay with everybody? Is anybody else?
One.
I'll happily be an alternate if you ever need one for that. Your Thursdays are going to be a little crowded, so I'd happily stand in your
I'm gonna
stead.
dedicate those Thursdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a motion in regards to having Mr. Fitchkowski to serve and Mr. Motts as their alternate?
So moved.
Is there
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
You get a vote.
I get to vote this time. That's good. Just picking Vicky. Subject H, appointment to Western Virginia Regional Jail Authority.
And Mary had sent an email to all of us saying that she was, I think that was the last line of her email, am I right? That she was
wants to be
happy to
the
continue.
Alternate.
I
Oh,
think
okay.
Supervisor King's been the appointee in the past, and Supervisor Biggs was the alternate.
Steve wants it, I think.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I would take that one.
That's close to the house. That's an easy.
It is.
Yes. So
Save on mileage.
is there a motion in regards to having Mr. Fitchkowski serve and then Ms. Biggs serve as the alternate?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next up, subject I, appointment to Public Service Authority Board. Is there a motion to appoint Sarah and Steve, Sarah Bone and Steve Fitchkowski?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
And you also need to reappoint Supervisor
Reappoint
King.
Todd.
Oh, and Super King, I'm sorry, I didn't see you
Leave
down
me
that
out
second
because I
paragraph.
voted for you.
I guess we need to amend that friendly amendment to that motion to add Mr. King.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and so there's been a friendly amendment. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchukowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Demotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
County Attorney's
Wait a
Report.
minute, there's one more. Don't we have to redo the DSS and ain't it yearly?
Don't think so. We went through the DSS appointee.
The term, isn't
The
it?
term, I
It's
think,
a
I
carries
think
over.
it's a term and your term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're still good on
Because you
that.
got reelected.
All right.
Yeah, we try. It gets really confusing. It takes a staff of thousands to go through and figure out and make sure we've got everything covered. But between Judy and Vicky and Carol and me and Marty, I think we all figured it out.
County Attorney's
Yeah.
Report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County Administrator's Report.
Just a couple of items this evening. Congratulations to Supervisor Tuck for your reelection as chair, and Supervisor DeMotts, look forward to working with you as vice chair. Congratulations. Also, Supervisor Bowen and Fidjikowski, glad to have you on board officially with us now. I look forward to a good year. Also want to thank the board for your understanding and support regarding the adjustments to the schedule we made yesterday. I can assure you that when we make decisions to close the office or move meetings, we don't do that lightly. We talk to quite a few people, and conversation with National Weather yesterday morning, they said between 1 and 1:30 it would start, and at 11 o'clock that didn't look like that was going to be true, but I heard a number of employees as they were leaving yesterday say it started between 1 and 1:30. So National Weather was right on the money with that, and I hope everybody made it home safely and stayed safe and warm last night. County offices, 'tis the season for state holidays. We will be closed this Friday for Lee Jackson Day, and then we'll be closed again on Monday for Martin Luther King Day. So,
4-day weekend.
yeah, I think when we looked at the calendar, it's actually the 4th week in January that we actually work 5 days in a row. But we do appreciate the board's support of the state schedule.
Probably better off just tell us when they're gonna be here.
I just wanted to remind you. Last thing I have is I know that Mike Chandler, who is going to be facilitating the board's extended work session on the 19th and 20th, has sent out a questionnaire that he asked everybody to take a look at and fill out in return. If you have any questions or need any help with getting the form so you can fill it out and send it back, let us know and we'll be glad to help. He will take those individually and compile them and keep them anonymous, and that includes for me. I don't see any of that stuff. He puts it together, and he'll use that to help facilitate the work session. So I think that'll be time well spent. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Well, normally this would be, again, Supervisor Biggs' time to report, but she unfortunately is under the weather, and so that goes to the Vice Chair, Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't really have a report. Just want to thank all of you for your support for me becoming the vice chair for this year. I look very much to serving in that role and using it as an opportunity to broaden my understanding of county operations and learn more about what we do in Montgomery County. And I really do very much appreciate all of your support in that role.
Supervisor Shepherd.
No report.
Supervisor Bone.
I want to recognize Craig and the staff for looking out for everybody yesterday. Thank you very much. I'd also like to recognize the National Bank of Blacksburg. It was nominated and is the Business of the Month from downtown Blacksburg. I just want to read a little bit. It says about it. National Bank traces its roots back to 1891 when businessman Alexander Black founded the Bank of Blacksburg to serve the fledgling town's financial needs. In the 126 years since it's first opened its doors, National Bank has grown along with Blacksburg and Southwest Virginia, and today the bank has 25 branch offices and one loan production office, over $1.2 billion in assets, and 230 employees. It's recognized as one of the best community small banks in the nation, so we're really proud of that in Blacksburg. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Supervisor Fidjikowski.
Well, I want to also say I thought it was a very wise decision to change the meeting date because it was very nasty out in the county. Even though it crushed my first debut in office, I'm okay with that. But I want to thank everybody that's helped me. I know Craig is he's answered a lot of questions for me, and I appreciate it. But so has several of you, and I thank you for that. And I look forward to coming back some other time, maybe in a couple weeks.
Supervisor King.
I don't have a report, but I would like to ask this board to consider something for me. As you may know, we had another fatality on Route 8. That's 2 in less than 5 months. I'd like this board to consider drafting a letter sending to Nick Rush, Chris Hurst, and VDOT in Richmond and the Salem, asking them to extend 45 mile an hour all the way to Floyd County line. I also would like to ask this board, with all due respect, to send a letter to Sheriff's Department asking them to vigilantly crack down on speeders on Route 8. I know, and I've talked to several law enforcement, state troopers and everything, and they say the courts get upset when you write somebody a ticket less than 10 miles an hour. We got a multi-million-dollar courthouse down there. To me, if we wrote tickets, even if they throwed them out of court, they got to take time off of work, and it would express Route 8 is a dangerous road, and we're going to be watching.
Well, let's take the first one up as far as asking staff to draft up the letter. Is there?
I have one thing to say. I've had several people in my district ask the question, is the Sheriff's Department running radar anymore? So just on a side note.
I'm looking. Is the Sheriff's Department still running radar? Oh, yeah. And I see them in the school zones, or regular, at least at Bellevue on 114, that they're running radar.
I saw one about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I guess. It's the first one I'd seen for a while.
Okay.
And I don't go there all the time, so I'm not saying they're not there. Just
Yeah. For whatever
had
reason.
other people ask me.
Yeah. For whatever reason, when I'm going out, that's when they're setting up, and they set up a lot on 114 because of speeders with the school being right there on it. But is there consensus to have the staff prepare a letter that we would send to Nick Rush, and I guess we'd also include Dave Suderline and Chris Hurst, because
Our
that would,
legislative delegation.
Greg Habib.
and Greg Habib.
I of course travel on Route 8, but not nearly with the frequency that you would. So I'm not really familiar of what the various speeds are on Route 8. What I know, when you get through the town of Reiner, it slows down.
Town Reiner.
Well, the village of Reiner. I apologize.
35 through.
Okay, and then what is it after that? Is it 55?
All the way to Floyd.
All the way to Floyd. And I've driven down that road as a unfamiliar with the road driver and thought, man, I cannot keep this speed up. I mean, just because I don't know what's coming and turns and stuff. So somebody that drives it with some frequency, if you think that it's warranted, I'd be happy to support it.
I know they come out and put 45 from Zach's house, Alley's, right next to Alley's, all the way to
Auburn Baptist,
Reiner.
where it drops to
Yeah.
35.
Then it drops to 35 there.
And that was necessitated due to the issues we had there at Meadow Creek and
Yep.
Dairy Road coming in. We've had a lot of accidents there, but as one who travels that road at least twice a day, because I live out in that area, people think it's still a country road and drive like it, but it's not a country road. It's awfully busy.
I think the survey that they done, or the count they done, was it something like 200 cars less than 114?
It's-
I mean, it was a small number.
It's a very heavily traveled road.
Well, if we could have staff go ahead, and then we could look at circulating it around to approve it, and then we could sign off on that letter to the delegation and to VDOT. And then the second aspect of it,
I ask one question about
Sure.
it. Are most of the accidents between, 81 and Reiner, or really it goes all the way up to Floyd and,
Yeah.
because of the windiness and stuff like that?
The
Okay.
last two wrecks, which was about 5 months apart, was probably a mile apart.
Up towards Floyd after.
Where in the curvy area
Is that-
past, yeah.
and it's amazing, Route 8 is, at least seems to me, when it gets into Floyd, it's a lot straighter. At least that's my perception of things. So.
Floyd's part of Route 8 was improved long after Montgomery's was, and now Montgomery's end of it, especially south of Reiner, needs to be improved again. All those curves need to be taken out, or at least softened like they did in Floyd, because for those of you that remember what it was like in Floyd before they improved it, it was much worse. It was much worse, so.
That suggestion is timely as well, because we've had some conversations with the Floyd County folks about pursuing a more aggressive stance with VDOT on what you just talked about. Is there have been improvements on the Floyd side, but on the Montgomery side, especially up to the Reiner area, it's still pretty dangerous. And you're right, if somebody's going 55 or even 50 through some of those, it's way too fast.
Well, and I think your idea is a good stopgap, for now, with the idea that pushing our state delegation to consider funding for larger scale improvements would also be a good idea.
And we've talked about the Go Virginia in the, is it Smart Scale, excuse me, roads, and working with Floyd about getting it turn lanes in and those type of things. And they, when we met with them, they were very much willing to help us
Good.
to improve the road, because they see that it being an artery to 81 for them economically.
community.
Yeah. The second aspect, is there consensus about asking the Sheriff's Department to strictly enforce the speeds on Route 8 and run some radar to slow some folks down?
Yeah.
All right. There we go. So we'll get those two drafted. Anything else?
I guess that's all for now.
All right. Well, I've got a few things. One is in regards to, there was some discussions, and that we would take it up at the beginning of the year about whether we would continue to explore specifically bringing in the Treasurer and Commissioner of Revenue's office. And I guess at this point in time, I'm looking to see, is there support in continuing to explore this and look at it, or do we want to stop it now and not go any further? And because I would like to try to get it on the agenda before we really get into the budget season. So if we could try to, and when I'm saying that, maybe invite Albemarle County, the Commissioner of Revenue, and also elicit public response from the general public. Maybe have a public hearing on it to get input from citizens as well, in maybe the first meeting in February. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we've got a consensus, at least, that is something that we want to continue to explore. I'm not saying everybody is voting for it. I'm saying to continue to explore it. So I'm looking around the room, and
I think I would love to see us look into it further. I have not heard at the meetings that I attended in my previous life any reason that we shouldn't explore it anymore. If it's a way to improve efficiency and get more things done for the citizens of the county, I think we need to, at the very least, look into it. And I would absolutely love to hear from some of these counties that have gone to that form of government. I think we will get more out of what they have to say than anything else we could read. So I'm definitely interested in it.
okay, Daryl?
I'd like to hear from those counties if it's happened and they lived through it. In other words, if it happened 20 years ago, they probably don't have any concept of
Albemarle
it.
County is about the closest one, and I want to say that was in early 2000s. Now, Roanoke did it and did a modified, but that was like in 1972.
Right.
So, I mean, I was 5 years old, and there may not be anybody around. So that's what, and Albemarle is not exactly our size, but at least it's ballpark.
Albemarle was longer than that.
Is it?
I don't remember if it was 70s or early 80s, but I know I've had a conversation with their deputy
Okay.
county administrator, and one of the challenges he mentioned to me is if we want to try to have somebody come, he's got to find somebody that remembers, because he said most of the folks that were involved are retired.
I'd like to hear somebody who went through the process. I'd like to also hear somebody who, this is what works. This is the nuts and bolts. This is how it happens.
And I'd be curious about the difference in the money. And I know it's a busy time for the administration, so it's bad timing, I guess, but.
And we could go over some of the numbers as well.
Well, I'll tell you my concern is if it happens, and I can't remember the county, maybe Craig can help me with it, when they done it, switched over, everybody gets voted at one time. And when they done that, I think they cleaned out the county administrator,
Gloucester County.
the county attorney, and everybody else in there.
That was fairly recent too, wasn't it?
Now,
Yeah.
Last 4 or
and that's
5
what
years.
Emily, I think Gibson had been there for that.
And then another concern is a lot of people has talked to me, well, several people has talked to me, and most of them is upset because they think we trying to take one of their opportunity to vote for somebody.
And that's a concern that I have as well.
What was, I didn't hear that. What did you say the concern was?
Their concern is we're trying to take their
Voice.
opportunity to vote for somebody. Instead of voting treasurer and commissioner in, we're appointing them in there, or
County staff is
county
hiring.
staff is hiring.
Supervisor Creed asked me one time what I thought out of the session, and I said, well, this is my thought. I think we would probably get better quality people in those positions in the long run. I don't know that the growing pains will live through it.
Well, I'm not familiar. You said this happened in Craig County where they voted all these people?
No,
Gloucester.
That was in Gloucester County,
Gloucester County.
and I don't think that was related to changing form of there was some change that resulted in all the board members being elected at the same time instead of staggered terms, and
I see. I don't see an issue with that, everyone being elected at the same time. It's the will of the people. If they weren't doing what the people wanted them to do, they cleaned house. So be it.
Well, I guess I'm looking. I haven't heard from Sarah, and
I'm generally positive about this because I like the idea of evaluating opportunities that might save money for our constituents. But even more important than that is the service and the availability for people to approach the treasurer or treasurer equivalent and commissioner of the revenue equivalent. I don't believe that we have enough information yet to say, yes, it's going to be better or worse. In fact, I believe we've pretty much only heard positives. We haven't heard negatives yet. I am sensitive to the citizens who definitely would prefer to have more representation. But I don't know enough about those two roles to say that they are actually representing the citizens in a meaningful way. So I am not overly concerned about the voting all at once because I believe that when Gloucester County did it, it was probably soon after a redistricting vote, so that probably had an impact on the votes. And if this were to continue, We're not due for redistricting until 2021, I guess, so this would happen before, and I don't think that a clean out would probably be the case, but I kind of like what Steve mentioned, if that's the will of the people. And I believe I talked to Marty after one of the meetings, and he said that we could reinstitute staggered voting after everybody went through everything. This all passed, and we all had to get voted in or, replaced. And then if it was the will of the government moving forward from that point, we could set up staggered voting from that point. And perhaps I asked the wrong question to you, Marty.
I can check on that, but yeah, I don't remember talking about that specifically, but I can check on that.
So I like that we can get back to staggered voting. So I would encourage us to move forward to at least get more information.
Well, just to add a little bit more to this, I don't particularly like the idea of all 7 board members being on the ballot at the same time in perpetuity, because I think that could lead to every 4th year a lot of grandstanding, which really wouldn't be very functional. If Marty, if you could get back to us with an answer to whether or not staggered terms would be an option down the road, that would ease that worry for me. One thing I would ask is, it looks like there's enough will probably on the board to move forward with more research into this. I'd like to ask if we could also bring in folks from the Treasurers Association and the Commissioner of the Revenues Association, just to hear that perspective, knowing that it's going to be very much in favor of not doing it, but I'd like to hear the perspective and ask questions as well.
Absolutely.
I've already had
that was one of the
conversations.
things
Yep.
that we had actually planned on maybe in November, but now it's January. But I think it's important to hear from their perspective on things. So if I hear...
Just one more thing. I remember some people talking about the costs of actually doing all this research. And do we have a sense of how much mileage reimbursement or lodging, or if that's significant or not as part of this process?
The short answer to that is no, but I think it would be very minimal. When I've talked to my friend in Albemarle County, I mean, most county officials are more than happy to work with each other. I know the offer was made to reimburse, and there may be 1 or 2 that would take us up on that, but most folks will be willing to come just for the opportunity to speak and be heard.
And there'd be a little bit of cost on a referendum if you ended up going to that.
You get that
Right.
far,
Not
yeah.
a lot, but there'd be some there.
Yeah, because this ultimately would be a ballot referendum. It wouldn't be our decision to make. It'd be our decision whether it goes on a ballot or not,
Right,
right?
it's our decision unless there would be a petition. And
Right.
so if I'm hearing that correctly, and I'm counting, there's at least a desire to explore, nobody's committing on their votes yet, to gather additional information. And so then I'm going to instruct the staff to shoot for that first meeting in February. Is that feasible? And
It's feasible. Yes, it's feasible. I will caution the board, and we'll be very open with you if we see that that we're getting into a jam time-wise, because we've already had meetings to begin the budget process, which we're in the thick of. We're also trying to wrap up the compensation and classification study for the employees, which is something that our employees have been anxiously awaiting. So there's a full plate, but we'll work that in, and if it becomes an issue, we'll let you know.
Others, and I'm willing to have input on the way I run meetings. And we've got 2 new folks here, and who've sat through almost a year full of meetings. I typically try to make sure that every single supervisor has had an opportunity to speak. And that is something that was important to me, and to give everybody an opportunity. I tried to alternate starting from each side. And I may have missed it. And then also, if there's something that's specific, like the Prices Fork District or something in Blacksburg, to give that supervisor the first word. Are folks satisfied with the way, or there's some things that y'all would like to see me do differently? I'm happy to try to, I'm open to suggestions.
I kind of like what Vicky does when she asks for a vote and how she alternates who goes first. I don't know if you have the talent to do that, but I think you might. But that could, we're in this room right now, and
Yep.
I don't know if I'm going to be on one of the ends when we get into the other room. But I felt a lot of sympathy for Daryl this last year because he'd be called on half the time, right? First. So I would ask that maybe you learn a lesson or two from Vicky.
I will do my best. And what maybe I can do is get a cheat sheet and just have a little cheat sheet starting off with. And because sometimes when you're thinking about 6 different things and about what you're going to say next, but I'm happy to make that modification. But I do think it's important to give each supervisor a chance to speak because, and I've watched some other meetings, sometimes you'll get some people that really will talk a lot and that they will assert themselves and then no one else gets an opportunity, and I want to continue to do that. That being said, I really am looking forward to our extended work session. Notice I said not a retreat,
There you go.
extended
Not a
work
retreat.
session.
It'll be a work session. Mr. Chandler put you guys through your paces.
And looking back on what we did 2 years ago and thinking about what was on that board and what we were able to accomplish, I'm very proud of that. And that is something that this board did together and worked through a lot of very, very difficult issues. I'm hoping that the issues aren't as difficult this coming year, but I really think that helps give staff that kind of guidance about where they want to see the county go in the next year to 2 years. With that being said, is there anything else?
Yeah. Me and April was talking. Are we planning on moving these meetings around, or at least having community meetings?
That's certainly something that we can talk about. I know that in the past we've had some meetings that weren't regular board meetings in other areas. And as I've shared with you previously, I know in some communities, once a quarter, they'll move one of their regular board meetings to another location so they can say they've had a meeting. Staff's open to whatever this board wants to do with that.
It don't have to be one of the regular meetings. I mean, it could be just like we did, 2 years after, a community meeting.
Yes, sir.
I was thinking that maybe we should do the community meetings and try to pick out another Monday, but maybe get it through the board.
We ain't gonna be able to pick another Monday because 3 of them's full.
Well, but that would be the third, the third.
PSA.
Well, no, but I'm saying that the third Mondays. So if we did PSA first, the board second and fourth, and then typically the fifth we've got with the school board.
Do the Big Bang Theories on Mondays.
I understand, but do you have this thing called DVR?
No, I don't.
Oh,
Have any idea how nice it is to be be home on a Monday evening every once in a while?
I was just thinking about if
Kidding.
we do have those, if we have a full meeting, that means there are folks that do watch our meetings and they look at them on YouTube and they watch them, and the next thing you know, I'm in Walmart and somebody's walking up and saying, "Hey, I saw you, da 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 da." So I want them to be able to do that, but dragging all the cameras and doing all
That's
those.
why I say just have some community meetings.
So
We're open to whatever this board wants to do.
I think we need to start that early in the year.
Are you talking about just having a community meeting, say in the Reiner community, where we talk about Reiner's issues and people
Talk
can
about
come?
anything
Yeah.
they want to talk about.
And we encourage the community to come to that meeting and have more of a conversational type meeting.
I like the
I'm for
idea
it.
of quarterly also,
Yeah.
we could, we could have, if we have one in Reiner, one in the Charlottesville area, one in the Christiansburg area, and one in the Blacksburg
Yeah.
area, and maybe the Blacksburg area be towards Kips.
Like at the Grange or something
or
like
something like that. Well, towards that end of it, and so that way, it wouldn't be every district that would be covered, but it would be kind of close, and it would, so we could, and then maybe shoot for those community meetings and start it.
I like to start alphabetical that way. You know what I'm saying? Just in that
Start
way.
off with
Is that Auburn or Reiner?
Blacksburg, Christiansburg. That would be Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and then
that. Reiner, Shawsville.
Reiner, Charlottesville. So,
Yeah.
I thought he meant by district
oh.
alphabet.
No.
That would be District A. Well, with that being said, do we want to do it on a Monday night? Do we want to do it on a different night during the week, what would y'all's preferences to the community meetings? And we need to set it out a little bit of time to be able to get, we had a kind of a program that we worked up and
Can I make a suggestion?
sure.
Why don't you contemplate on that and have that as one of your discussion topics for the work session, rather
Right.
than trying to make that decision tonight?
So then everybody can come prepared kind of with their
Are you
schedule.
not
in mind.
prepared?
Well, you just asked the question, Todd.
I'll be prepared.
That being said, that I do like that idea about talking about what we would talk about at the community meetings, because I will say this, there's some that, was well attended in Blacksburg. The one in Charlottesville was well attended. The one in Christiansburg, I forgot what was going on, but it was not well attended. But there was like I want to say it was a state championship basketball game, and it wasn't well attended. The one out in Roanoke was very well attended. So, there is interest.
I think it's great.
So, that being said, do we want to take it up at our extended work session
Yeah.
and have those dates? All right. Any other business? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Where'd you go?